The little lighthouse that waited for the dawn. Beside a quiet ocean shore where waves had whispered evermore, there stood a little lighthouse white, watching over the sea at night. Its windows glowed with gentle gold. Its walls were weathered, worn, and old. Each evening, when the sun went down and darkness settled on the town, little lighthouse woke to shine. Its golden beam crossed the brine. It swept the water slow and white across the waves from side to side. The lighthouse watched the ships go by beneath the moonlit velvet sky. Some sailed toward distant lands, some carried dreams to foreign sands. The little lighthouse, he often thought, I wonder what adventures they have sought. But every night it stayed behind, a quiet guardian, calm and kind. One evening, clouds began to grow, and cold winds swept the ocean below. The waves became enormous, strong, and thunder rolled the cliffs along. The lighthouse kept its golden beam across the dark and restless sea. A small fishing boat was far away, struggling through the storm that day. Its little sail was torn apart, and fear had filled the fisherman's heart. It cannot see the shore, he cried. The darkness stretches far and wide, but through the rain beneath the sky, a golden light appeared nearby. The lighthouse beam crossed through the rain, then disappeared and came again. The fisherman followed its gentle glow, learning which direction he should go. Wave after wave rose high and deep, but still the lighthouse beam would sweep. At last the little boat came near, and the fisherman no longer feared. He reached the harbor safe and sound, where warm lights welcomed him to ground. He looked toward the lighthouse high and whispered, Thank you for your light. The little lighthouse felt a glow and that even storms could never know. It understood its purpose then. It would have the lost find home again. But when the storm had passed away, the lighthouse watched the breaking day. The ocean slowly turned to gold and all the crowds began to fold. The little lighthouse looked toward the sun and wondered if its work was done. Perhaps tonight another ship will need my light to make the trip. So it waited quietly, patiently. The next evening, when the moon arose, a young girl walked where the sea wind blows. She carried a little wooden boat, the toy that somehow would not float. She sat upon the sandy shore, watching waves roll evermore. My father is away at sea, she said. I hope he finds his way back home. The lighthouse heard her quiet prayer and sent its golden light through the air. The girl looked up, the lighthouse shone. She smiled and whispered, I know he can see it too. Night after night, the girl returned, watching every light that burned. She never knew the lighthouse beam was part of someone's nightly dream. One evening, far beyond the bay, a ship appeared at break of day. The girl ran quickly toward the shore, in her heart beating like never before. The ship came closer through the blue. A familiar figure stood there toward father. She ran across the sand and he reached out his waiting hand. He had returned, he was safe. The lighthouse watched from far above, filled with the quiet kind of love. It did not speak, it did not move, yet somehow it had helped them through. The seasons changed, the years went by. Spring flowers bloomed beneath the sky. Summer warmed the ocean blue. Autumn brought its leaves anew. Winter covered shore and stone with silver frost and white snow. Still the lighthouse stayed awake, watching every journey people made. But one winter night, something strange happened. Lighthouse light began to flicker. Once, twice, then it grew dim. The little lighthouse felt afraid. What if I cannot shine anymore? The wind whispered around its walls. The ocean crashed below, and the lighthouse looked toward the dark horizon. For the first time, it wondered who would guide the ship if its lights disappeared. Then the moon spoke softly. You have guided others for many years. Perhaps now you need someone to guide you. The lighthouse was surprised. Who could guide me? The moon pointed toward the horizon. Wait. So the lighthouse waited. Through the long winter night, it listened to the waves, listened to the wind, it listened to the distant cries of seabirds, and slowly beneath the darkest part of the sky, something began to appear. Tiny line of silver, the first light of dawn. The lighthouse watched in silence. The darkness did not disappear all at once. It simply became lighter, little by little, moment by moment, until the horizon began to float. The lighthouse understood sometimes you cannot make the darkness disappear. Sometimes you can only wait for the light to return. And sometimes waiting is its own kind of courage. The little lighthouse watched the dawn rise, and for the first time in many years, it rested. But the story of its light was not finished yet. The little lighthouse watched the dawn as golden light spread slowly on. The ocean changed from dark to blue, and morning painted everything new. The lighthouse rested for a while, its windows warm with peaceful light. The moon had faded from the sky while seabirds called as they flew by. For many years it had believed that it was strong because it never stopped, but now it understood something more. Even a guardian needs to rest. Even a light needs darkness to show what it means. The little lighthouse closed its door and listened to the waves below. The morning tide gently in, washing the shore where it had been. Children came to build sand castles. Families walked along the beach. The young girl who had waited for her father was now older. She returned to the lighthouse one summer morning. She stood beneath its star white walls and smiled. I remember you, she whispered. You helped me wait. The lighthouse shone softly in the sunlight. The girl had grown into a young woman. She now worked at the harbor, helping boats find their way home every evening. She checked the ship. Every night she watched the lighthouse beam, and whenever a storm arrived, she remembered the night when she had waited for her father. One evening, a fisherman asked her, why do you always look toward the lighthouse? She smiled, because sometimes people need more than directions. Sometimes they need a reason to believe that someone is waiting for them. The fisherman nodded. The lighthouse continued shining. Years passed again. The old fishing boats became newer boats. The harbor grew larger. The little town changed. New houses appeared. New families arrived, but the lighthouses remained. Its walls became more weathered. Its windows became older, yet its light continued to sweep across the sea each night. Then one autumn evening, a great storm returned. The waves rose high, the wind screamed through the harbor, rain covered the sea, and far beyond the waves, a small boat disappeared into the darkness. The lighthouse turned its beam toward the sea once, twice again. The beam crossed the rain. The boat's captain saw it. There, he shouted, the lighthouse. The crew followed the light. The storm pushed them backward. The waves tried to turn them around, but the golden beam kept returning again and again and again. Finally, the boat reached the harbor safe. The, the people on the shore cheered. The captain looked toward the lighthouse. I thought we were lost. A harbor worker answered, sometimes you only need one light to remember which way is home. Lighthouse heard them. Its golden beam seemed to shine brighter, not because it had become stronger, but because it remembered its purpose to guide, to comfort, to wait, and sometimes to simply remain. After the storm passed, the town became quiet. The sea settled. The clouds moved away. Stars returned above the water. The lighthouse looked toward the horizon. There was a dawn again. Soft, slow, certain. The lighthouse smiled. It had once been afraid that darkness meant the end of life. Now it knew better. Darkness was simply part of the journey. Night would become, storms would become, ships would lose their way, people would become frightened, dreams would sometimes flee far away, but morning would always be somewhere beyond the horizon, and until it arrived, the lighthouse would wait. One peaceful night, the old lighthouse keeper climbed the stairs. He opened the lantern room window and looked toward the stars. You have been shining for a very long time, he whispered. The lighthouse said nothing, but the keeper smiled. I think you have taught this town something important. He looked toward the sea. Not every difficult night needs to be defeated. Some nights simply needs to be endured until morning comes. The lighthouse beam crossed the ocean far away. A ship answered with a tiny light. The lighthouse smiled. It was not alone. Every light could answer another light. Every act of kindness could inspire another. Every moment of hope could become a reason for someone else to continue. The night became peaceful. The waves whispered against the shore. The harbor lights reflected in the water. The stars filled the sky. And the little lighthouse continued its watch, not afraid of the darkness, not impatient for the morning, just quietly doing what it could, shining, waiting, guiding, hoping. And when dawn finally arrived, the lighthouse welcomed it. The first golden ray touched the ocean, then the rooftop, then the harbor, then the lighthouse itself. Its white walls glowed warmly in the morning sun. The lighthouse keeper took upward. Another night completed. The little lighthouse seemed to whisper another morning beginning, and that became its greatest lesson. The night is not forever, the storm is not forever, the loneliness is not forever, the uncertainty is not forever. There is always a horizon. And somewhere beyond that horizon, the dawn is waiting. So the little lighthouse continued to stand beside the sea year after year, season after season, storm after storm. It never knew who would need its light next, but it did not need to know. It simply kept shining because sometimes being there is enough, sometimes waiting is enough, sometimes one small light in a great darkness is enough to help someone find their way. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply hold on until the first light of morning appears. That was a poem. Now, the message of the poem. The darkest night does not last forever. The little lighthouse teaches us that life will sometimes bring storms, uncertainty, loneliness, and moments when we'll feel lost. We may not always be able to change the situation. We may not be able to make the storm disappear, but we can keep going. We can remain patient. We can rest when we need to, and we can keep a small light of hope alive. The lighthouse also reminds us that waiting is not weakness. Sometimes waiting means having courage. Sometimes healing takes time. Sometimes dreams need patience. Sometimes we must simply trust that morning is coming. You do not need to solve everything tonight. You do not need to know what tomorrow will bring. Just keep your little light burning, keep believing, keep moving forward when you can. And when you cannot move forward, rest. The dawn is still coming, storms pass, nights end, waves become calm, and light always find a way back to the horizon. So whenever life feels dark, remember the little lighthouse. You will not be able to control the night, but you can choose to keep your light alive until morning comes. Hope you like the poem. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more soft spoken videos. Thank you.